you have to go into the Bible in detail. In order to understand the Bible, you have to understand God's Israel. And that everything in the Bible, God didn't just put something down to say, well, that has a real pretty sound. I think I'll just put that in there because those are real pretty fancy words. You can't study the Bible that way. Everything has a meaning in the Hebrew text in the Old Testament. Old Testament is written in Hebrew. Now, somebody that says the Old Testament is written in Aramaic, they don't know what they're talking about. Once in a while, an Aramaic word will be used, but the Septuagint, LXX, that's 70 in Roman numerals, and it took 70 translators to translate the Septuagint from the Hebrew, Old Testament Hebrew, around 200 BC, is translating the Hebrew into Greek. And people get all this confused. And of course the reason for that is Alexander the Great was ruling the world from around 332 to 330, where he died. It's believed that he was killed by one of his generals, probably Seleucus. And then you had a translation which has nothing to do with this. You had a translation from the Hebrew over to the Aramaic in Babylon. When Israel was carried away into captivity, the Levites, which were the keepers of the law in Israel, that was the third son of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel over there in the 32nd chapter of Genesis. Let me just say this, and I haven't ever mentioned this before. In the 32nd chapter of Genesis, Jacob becomes Israel. Don't get this translation of the Septuagint confused with this one right here. This is a bad translation. The word was twisted so the rabbis of the Babylonian synagogue could have their way with the Word of God. This right here was a Hebrew translation over into Greek. This was over into Aramaic. This was for selfish reasons that the rabbis translated the Hebrew over into a Babylonian system, and that was the system of the synagogue, which was created in Babylon. Now, a lot of times you'll run across things that seem contradictory in the Bible. There's a verse over there, it's a happening in the Old Testament. People think, well, that's really unfair. Let's look at it over here in 2 Samuel, the 6th chapter. People don't understand this. And the reason they don't understand this, let me say this out front. They think God was completely unfair with this. He killed a man for reaching out and touching the Ark of the Covenant. Let me show you why. People wonder about this, but it's because they don't know anything about Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. If they would study that, then they'd find out why God killed that man. Now look here in verse 1, chapter 6. What I like to do is show you how to study and how to find these things out. Again, David gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people that were with him from Baale of Judah to bring up from thence the Ark of God. The Ark of the Covenant had been taken. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into the whole story. But it had been taken from Israel when the two sons of Eli, the high priest, had gone the way of the world. They were taking bribes at the door of the tabernacle. They were messing with women, getting involved in all kinds of things like that. And the sons of Eli was a righteous man, except he didn't know how to make his kids behave. Eli was a descendant through Issachar of Aaron. So Eli was the high priest. In fact, when Samuel was born, in that second chapter of 1 Samuel, when Samuel was born, Hannah, his mother, had promised God, if you give me a son, I'll give him back to you, if it's what you want me to have. People try to come up and say, she got her prayer. No, she said, if you will give me one, I'll give him back to you. That's what Hannah told God. And what she didn't say, God, give me a son, I believe I'm going to get it. That's not what she did. She said, if it's what you want, that's what I'll do. Now, and David arose and went with all the people that were with him from Baalah of Judah to bring from thence the ark of God. Right after Hannah has Samuel, we see the two sons of Eli. They were Hophni and Phinehas. Now don't confuse this Phinehas with one of the descendants who was a righteous man. These were called sons of Belial. They were sons of the devil because of the way they lived. Well, God says, what I'm going to do, Eli, since you're not making your sons behave, I'm going to cause the Philistines to come into Israel, and I'm going to have them come in here and overthrow Israel because you're living wrong in Israel. Now, you have to understand, this is the beginning of 1 Samuel. Israel was not a nation under kings yet, not until the 9th chapter. Actually, his coronation didn't take place till the 12th chapter, but Saul started leading Israel in the 12th chapter. And then, while Saul was fighting back and forth with the Philistines came in and killed the two sons of Hophni and Phinehas. The two sons of Eli, which were Hophni and Phinehas. They killed them. And then the word gets back to Samuel. The word gets back to Eli through the words of the prophet Samuel. And when Eli hears this, hear his words. Here's what he says. He knows where he's done wrong. He knows he's led his sons wrong. And he says in verse 18 of chapter 3 of 1 Samuel, he said, it is the Lord, let him do what seemeth him good, when he promised to kill my two sons. And Eli said, that's fine with me. Now back over here, what happens? When the Ark of the Covenant is captured by the Philistines, and they take the Ark of the Covenant back over to one of their cities and raise it up in one of their temples, and when they put the Ark of the Covenant in one of their temples, their god Dagon is standing out there, and it's just a man-made god, and God keeps cutting the hands off and the legs off, and it's falling down the next morning. Well, the Philistines wasn't too worried until God sent something up on them. It was a plague called hemorrhoids. Probably something worse than hemorrhoids. Hemorrods. It had to be more than hemorrhoids. People said, those hemorrhoids. Had to be worse than that because people started dying from it. Well, after they all start falling dead, they said, get that Ark of the Covenant out here, get it back. They sent it back to Israel, but they didn't send it back to David. It went up into northern Israel. This 6th chapter of second Samuel is about the ark coming back home. They're bringing it back to Israel, back to where it belongs. That's what we're talking about, the ark coming home again. The ark was the throne of God. We've said that many times. The Ark of the Covenant was inside the Holy of Holies. You had the 7 candlesticks. You had the altar of incense and the table of showbread. And you had the brazen sea and the brazen altar. And this was the 6 pieces of furniture, and there was nothing else in there. You did have a mercy seat on top of this. You had a censer to bring fire from here and to light the candlesticks here. Now they're coming home, and David is thrilled. They're getting the Ark of the Covenant back. When they would go into battle and everything was right with Israel, they would carry the Ark of the Covenant with them, and they would slaughter everything that came to them. That's what the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy says. You'll go against your enemy one way, and they'll flee 7 ways. Well, let's continue and see what happens with this episode with David. And they set the ark of God upon a new cart. Oh, signal. Ding, 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 ding. Something's wrong here. The ark was never carried on a cart. Never. First of all, that's the first red light right there. You need to ring a bell as loud as you can. The ark had to be carried everywhere it went by a Kohathite. What in the world is a Kohathite? Oh, that's very simple. Let me write these names down for you. Levi, let me just show you. Everyone had their job in Israel. Everybody. Kohath. You had 3 sons of Levi. Levi was the 3rd son of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. Okay. So Kohath, Levi, 3rd son, you had Reuben, you had Simeon, Levi, Judah. Judah was the 4th son. Out of Judah would become the king. Out of Levi would come all the priesthood. Now, Kohath was one of the sons of Levi. And the Kohathites had a job to carry all the furniture of the temple. When that cloud began to move, this cloud right here, right there. When this cloud moved, it was a fire by night and a cloud by day. When it started moving, boy, the Kohathites started packing fast, because you moved when the cloud moved. That was your signal when it was time to move the spot where you were. And it was the job of the Kohathites to carry all the furniture. They had little rings inside the Ark of the Covenant. Little rings right here. It was just a little small thing. And the way the Ark of the Covenant was moved around, even the way the brazen altar, the way the table of showbread, the way all this was moved, it was carried, the altar of incense, the brazen sea, it was carried by Kohathites with a stave. And that was God's law, and you don't carry it any other way. If you touch the ark, you die. Nobody's allowed to do that. And watch what happens here. All right. Oh, let me put something else down here. You had Kohath. Now these are the sons of Levi: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, or Merari, however you want to pronounce it. M-E-R-A-R-I. Levi had 3 sons. Each one of those sons, they were priests. Now, anytime we get somewhere, and Gershon had a son named Amram. Let me move this. And he had a son named Izhar. These are all Kohath's sons. Kohath had a son named Izhar, and he had a son named Hebron. And in all probability, Hebron, they named the city of Hebron in southern Israel after this son of Kohath. And then had one named Hebron, and had one named Uzziel. U-Z-Z-I-E-L. Uzziel. Each one of these sons, as priests of God, had a job to do. And they had to do it exactly the way they were told. You can't veer from it, not 1 ounce. If you do, you'll die. Remember the priest on the 10th day of the 7th month? 10th day, 7th month. That was the Day of Atonement. The 7th month was the month Tishri. That was our month, September, October. After a 7-month period, well, the high priest would go in here. He would purify the outer sanctuary. He would go in here and make the sacrifices that were necessary to purify the inner sanctuary of the house of God, and that's us now. And all of these parts of furniture had to be brought in here in staves on the shoulders of Kohathites. Now here's an interesting thing. Amram had some sons. Had one named Aaron. And then he had another one named Moses. And had another child named Miriam. And God sets down the law. Everything that is a high priest will come out of Aaron, not Moses. But Moses was a priest since he was a Levite. Everybody that's a Levite is a priest, but everybody that's a Levite is not a high priest. You had to be a son of Aaron to be a high priest. In other words, to offer any sacrifices inside this temple, to offer any kind of sacrifices, you had to have the high priest's hands on it. If you're going to offer incense here, incense from this altar right here, you cannot just be a son of Kohath and be a high priest or do any of his duties. That's why there was a man named Korah. The Bible refers to him in the book of Jude. And Korah, there was a man of Kohath, and his name was Korah. And he goes to he goes to Aaron and Moses and said, you take too much on yourself. You think you're the only ones that could offer incense here? What about us? First of all, you're a son of Kohath. You're a son of Kohath, but you're not a son of Aaron. He goes into this. And that's when Moses in Numbers, the 16th chapter, God tells, I'll get it right in a minute. Moses tells this son of Korah, this son of Kohath, but he is the son of Issachar, and his name is Korah, and he is not a son of Aaron, and he's saying, why can't I do some of Aaron's rituals? God says, you come out here tomorrow. Moses says, you come out here tomorrow with your incense. They're ignoring the law of God. When they ignored the law of God the next day, they go out there, and Moses says, now, if this ground don't open up and swallow you, then I am not speaking for God. I'm not God's prophet. Well, I don't want Moses saying that to me. That means flee any minute, and that's exactly what happened. God killed people for getting just off the track just a little bit. Watch this. Look here in the 6th chapter. Now, let's look over here in 1 Samuel, the 7th chapter first. How did that thing get over there? Well, it was due to rebellion on the part, you could say on the part of these two sons of Belial, Hophni and Phinehas. You could say it was their fault, but it was their father's fault because he didn't raise them right and teach them right. And he was the high priest in Israel. So, you get over here in 1 Samuel, the 7th chapter, verse 1. 7th chapter. And the men of Kirjath Jehoram came and fetched up the ark of the Lord, and brought it into the house of Abinadab in the hill, and sanctified Eleazar his son to keep the ark of the Lord. They went and procured it after God brought all these emerods and was killing those Philistines right and left. They said, let's get this out of here, and they put it on a new cart, and they headed it back home. It's not to be carried on a cart. You think you can just change God's laws anytime you want to? That's what most of the Israelites thought. It came to pass while the ark abode in Kirjath Jearim that the time was long, for it was 20 years. They get it back into Israel, but don't get it back in its place. All the house of Israel lamented after the Lord, and Samuel spake unto all the house of Israel, saying, if you do return unto the Lord with all your hearts, then put away the strange gods and the Ashtaroth from among you. The Ashtaroth was a title for the female tree deities. And Ashtaroth from among you, and prepare your hearts unto the Lord, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. But they hadn't been serving him. Eli allowed his sons to be heathens. Now, and Samuel is the one that's pronouncing this judgment, and all that came about because Hannah kept crying unto the Lord. I don't have any children, and Peninnah, my husband's other wife, Elkanah's other wife, she has lots of children. What about me? And she says, I will give my child back to you if you allow me to have one. And she gave Hannah, God gave her Samuel. So when Samuel was old enough, he took him to the temple and gave him over to Eli, the high priest, and then here we go. We're on our way again. Now let's go back over here to 2 Samuel, the 6th chapter. Now let's read this. You see, you got to know more than just reading the Bible. You got to read where everything's connected together. Now look here in the 6th chapter of 2 Samuel. And they brought the ark of the covenant of out of the house of Abinadab. We just read about that. That's where the Philistines sent it to on a new cart. And they just leave it on a new cart. It wasn't their idea to put it on the new cart. It was the Philistines' idea. Well, you got to change. When you get around some pagan, you got to change your way of worshiping God. You don't let some pagan down here at a Free Will Church tell you how to worship God. Now, let's read this. And David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord on all manner of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps and on psalteries and timbrels and cornets and on cymbals, on timbrels and on cymbals. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah came from a priest family. He knew what he was doing, and he knew better. Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, because the oxen shook it. First of all, it's not supposed to be on a cart. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, because he's of a priestly family, and he knew better. What happens when the ark starts falling off of the cart? Here's what you do. Whoa, don't touch that. It'll kill you. You can't just start doing what you want to do. If God says you touch that ark, you die. If it starts falling, you run as fast as you can. Run somewhere. Get away from the ark. God knows how to preserve his own ark. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for his error, and he died by the ark of God. And Uzzah was a priest of God. He knew he shouldn't be touching the ark. Now, he probably went to heaven. It's one of those sins that are unto death. And David was displeased. David gets mad at God, and David knows what's supposed to be going on. David was displeased because the Lord had made a breach upon Uzzah, and he called the place, the name of the place, Perez-Uzzah, to this day. And then all of a sudden David gets afraid of the Lord that day, because he lost his temper at God over something that he knew better than to get angry at, because Uzzah was a good man, a godly man. And said, how shall the ark of the Lord come to me? So David would not remove the ark of the Lord unto him in the city of David, but David carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite. A Gittite was a Philistine. Evidently, this was a friendly Philistine. And the ark of the Lord continued to the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all of his household. Now, people say, that's not fair. God killed a man for no reason. He killed him for his own instruction. He killed him for just thumbing his nose at God. You can't do that when you know better than what you're doing. You can't just say, I'll do what I want. I'll go out here and party. I'll drink. I'll take drugs. And I believe in predestination. I can get by with it. Oh, yeah, you keep on trying that. God will bring you to a screeching halt one day. Now, I want to show you some of these things, what the Bible says about what we're supposed to do concerning these things. Look over here in Genesis 46. Go to Genesis 46. If you don't know anything about the Old Testament, you don't have any business trying to be the servant of God. Step back and get out of the way. And for those people that know better. Now, in Genesis 46, 46:11. All right. And the sons of Levi, here they are: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. These are the sons of Levi. And the sons of Judah, Onan, and so forth. It goes on down through here. I just wanted you to see that part right there. There's the sons of Levi. Now, look over here in Exodus 6. I'm just going to give you a bunch of these verses so you can see what I'm telling you. Exodus 6. All right. 14. Six 14. These are the heads of the fathers' houses, the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob, or Israel: Hanok, Palu, Hezron, Carmi. These be the families of Reuben. And the sons of Simeon: Jemuel, Jamin, Ohab, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of the Canaanitish woman. These are the families of Simeon. And these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations: Gershon, over here, Kohath, Merari, 3 sons. And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years. And the sons of Gershon: Libni, Shimi, according to their families. And the sons of Kohath: Amram, Izhar, and Hebron, and Uziel. And the years of the life of Kohath were 133 years. And the sons of Merari: Mahali, Mushi. These are the families of Levi according to their generations. Now, one of the sons of Levi is Amram, right? And verse 20. And Amram took him Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife, and she bare him Aaron, Moses. Aaron was 3 years older than Moses, and the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. And you need to know that's there because God, through the law, is going to limit the sacrifices unto Aaron. Now, Aaron had 4 sons. He had 4. He had Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, Ithamar. God killed Nadab and Abihu. I believe that's in the 8th chapter of Numbers. Look at that, 8th chapter of Numbers, I believe it is. All right. Numbers, I believe it's 8. Remembering these guys takes a lot of remembering, doesn't it? Oh, no, wait a minute. It's back here a little further. All right. I think it's over here in... But God killed Nadab and Abihu because they offered strange fire before the Lord. Let me see here. Where do I have this? They offered strange fire. When they offered strange fire, God struck them dead. That left only 2 sons left of Aaron to be the high priest of Israel. And as soon as God kills these 2 men, you're going to see... Wait a minute here. Y'all have to wait a second here. All right. Now I want to read that, but not right now. Okay. Now you'll have to forgive me. I have misplaced where God kills these 2 men. He kills them because they offer this strange fire before the Lord. And people say, what is the strange fire? Huh? What? 3, 4? I can't hear you. 10? I can't hear what she said. Okay, Numbers 3. I knew it was somewhere in there. Somewhere. All right. Okay. The names of the sons of Aaron the priest, which were anointed, whom he consecrated to minister. No, I was thinking of Leviticus 10. Nadab, Abihu died before the Lord when they offered strange fire in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. And Eleazar and Ithamar ministered in the priest's office. You got to remember Ithamar and Eleazar, because you're going to find sons of Ithamar and Eleazar descendants. In fact, Eli was a descendant. I do not remember which family. I believe it was Eleazar. He was a family here. Could have been Ithamar. But anyway, he was one of these families, and the only ones left all the way through the books of the Kings. Anytime it will say the high priest, it'll be one of the descendants of these two, because these did not have any children. There is a verse over here in Leviticus 10. That's why I couldn't find it. It was Leviticus 10, not Numbers 10. Leviticus 10. And this is while Moses is up on the mountain getting the law. So this happens early on. Yeah, Leviticus 10. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer and fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. And there went out fire from the Lord and devoured them. But the consequences are worse yet, because watch what God says to him. Then Moses said unto Aaron, this is it that the Lord spake, saying, I will be sanctified in these death of these two sons of Aaron, in them that come nigh me, and before all people I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace. And Moses called Mishael and Elzaphan, the sons of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said unto them, he was Aaron's uncle. Aaron was the son of Gershon, and Uzziel would have been right here, being Aaron's uncle, because Uzziel's brother was Amram. Now he says here, now here's the thing about this. God gets very serious about his law. I don't like people playing with the Word of God. I have people, well, that's your opinion, I got mine, and we can just be buddies and pals. No, we can't. And Moses said unto Aaron, and unto Eleazar, and unto Ithamar his sons, uncover not your heads, neither rend your clothes. Do not mourn for these two sons. They knew what they were doing. Do not mourn for Uzzah. He knew what he was doing. Watch out what God will do in your life when you just play with his word. There's people out there in the world that claim to believe predestination, claim to believe these things, and they play with the Word of God. God's liable to kill you if you claim to be a believer and you just ignore God's Word. Neither rend your clothes, lest you die. I will kill you, God says. Don't you mourn for these boys. Lest you die, and lest wrath come upon all the people, but let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning which the Lord hath kindled. He says, don't you mourn for these two boys, Nadab and Abihu. I told them, they know what they're supposed to do, and they ignored it. Uzzah knew what he was supposed to do. And he reaches out and grabs the Ark of the Covenant. You die when you do that. It's like, I don't know what these people are thinking of. Now let's look over here. Let's go back to Numbers 3. Numbers 3. And let's start here in verse 14. 14. No, let me see. Yeah, 14. And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, saying, Number the children of Levi after the house of their fathers, by their families, every male from a month old and upward, shalt thou number them. And Moses numbered them according to the word of the Lord, as he was commanded. These were the sons of Levi, their names Gershon, Kohath, Merari. The sons of Gershon by their families, Libni and Shimei. And the sons of Kohath by their families, Amram, the father of Aaron, Amram, and Izahar, Hebron, and Uzziel. And the sons of Merari by their families, Mahali, Mushi. These are the families of the Levites according to the house of their fathers. Of Gershon was the family of the Libnites, and so forth. Now, look down here at verse 27. And Kohath was of the family of Amramites, and the family of the Izharites, and the family of the Hebronites, and the family of Uzzielites. These are the families of Kohath. In the number of all the males from a month old and upward were 8,600 keeping the charge of the sanctuary. The families of the sons of Kohath shall pitch on the side of the tabernacle southward. If you don't do that, everybody in your camp will die.